Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Our session focuses on the types of research instruments and their purpose, current trends. Well, I hope and expect by the end of this session, you would have some know-how of the current trends in research with particular reference to the research instruments that are used. Well, my dear students, analysis of the measures that applied linguists have been utilizing in empirical research studies over the last 6 years in the 5 key journals found that 4/5 of the measures used represented tests or tasks to measure performance. Well, at this stage, I would like to make it clear that, again, to give you an idea of the current trends, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the key findings of 5 journals over a period of 6 years. That would give you some idea of what kind of research instruments were in trend during this particular time. So with reference to that, it was found that 4/5 of the measures used represented tests or tasks to measure performance. The 5 journals that I have used are Modern Language Journal, Language Learning, Studies in Second Language Acquisition, Applied Linguistics, and Language Teaching Research. However, the number of standardized tests that were used was very, very low, and very little research attention seems to be devoted to ensuring the validity of these tests. Nor is there a stated concern with the piloting of these tests and tasks. So, we do not find any trend as such of doing a pilot study before conducting a research. Now we need to have an insight into the purposes that these instruments have been put to, which are as follows. Number 1, issues of categorization. Some studies adopt a mixed method approach where not only are qualitative and quantitative methods combined to fit the purpose, but also a broader range of instruments is used. So multiple instruments use is a current trend. Also, depending on their research questions, researchers may find themselves needing measures that fall, for example, in all 4 of the areas that are listed below. Number 1, the linguistic knowledge. So, in terms of the research questions, when you look at what kind of the stuff was examined, the linguistic knowledge was one aspect, including grammatical judgments tests, discourse completion tasks, which we call DCTs as well, verbal report data, and reaction time measures as such. The second type is linguistic performance or skills, anything from the tests of receptive ability using a multiple choice format to cloze tests and to C tests to free recall protocols or the story narrations or role plays. These are used to evaluate the performance, the linguistic performance or the linguistic skills of the participants. The third important dimension that we find is as a trend, that is the attitudes and perceptions. Well, including questionnaires or surveys that may be online or offline surveys or interviews that vary in terms of structures, journals, or through the use of a repertory grid to get all the people's perceptions, assumptions, and concepts. The attitudes and perceptions of the participants are measured. The fourth trend is that of the cognitive processing, and mostly through verbal report measures such as think-alouds, introspective and retrospective self-observations, etc. And through self-reports, the process of cognition is measured. Another trend is of verbal reports. The 2 verbal report techniques, think-aloud and stimulated recall, as representing 2 different polarities, 2 different extremes on a continuum, because they involve 2 variables, time and distance from the learning event. These were observed to be used in these journals. In a think-aloud protocol, the participants are given a task to perform, and during the performance of that task, they're asked to verbalize, that is to articulate what their thought process is. So through this think-aloud protocol, again, their attitudes are measured. The researcher's role is merely to encourage that verbalization through prompting the participants with utterances such as, please keep telling me this, what are you thinking, please keep thinking aloud if you can, etc. So by keeping on saying these kind of things, the researcher would motivate the participants to share their feelings that they have. Think-aloud implies no direct inspection of the mental state, but merely, reporting it. There is considerable debate as to how feasible it is to reliably capture their inner thought process. What does it mean? What a participant is reporting, or what a participant is saying, or what a participant tells in a think-aloud process, that this is what he or she is thinking. Is he or she really thinking that? This is a question of significance for the researchers. With stimulated recall, the event is recorded in some way. For example, during an actual language session, a researcher may want to know what the learner's reaction was to a specific teacher behavior. So, it would be recorded, and then, a researcher is interested in investigating the theme of pragmatic competence, for example, then he or she sets up a role play in a meeting between the student and the teacher, and it is recorded. In these examples, a teacher's behavior or the role play may be voice recorded or video recorded. The event is then represented to the participants to some time later, and, in almost always in a different place from where it actually occurred. And then, it is recorded what went on in terms of their thought process. Both time and location may have an impact on the accuracy of these kind of tests. This is again a thought-provoking question. The more time lapse, the more they may have forgotten what they were actually thinking at that time when that happened. However, I would say, despite the problems associated with the continuum from concurrent reporting of participants' thoughts to stimulated recall, these participant-centered techniques continue to be very popular because of the rich data that they can elicit, and the researchers continue to refine the techniques as well as problematizing them. These are the current trends that we find with reference to the use of research instruments in today's context.